Life is short. Did you notice? In a snap, one full life just flew right out before your eyes. And how often have you said, or maybe even thought, as if it was only yesterday? Think with me for a moment. As if it was only yesterday that you were born. You made your first step. You celebrated your first birthday. You said your first words. As if it was only yesterday. You were in school. You learned how to read, how to write, and you had your first crush. And of course, a first heartbreak. And then a serious relationship. As if it was only yesterday, you had your first job, you earned your first pay, you got married, you started a family, and then you became a parent. You stepped into your midlife, then became a grandparent. Now, in your twilight years, as if it was only yesterday. Think about this. In the blink of an eye. No matter what stage of life you're in, you're suddenly where you are now. And then bam! So fast, so rapid, so quick, and so gone. You go through different life stages that reminds you of the milestones, of special moments, even the not so good experiences where real life lessons were learned, now gone in the blink of an eye. Life is short. An anonymous author once wrote, "In a blink of an eye, time is gone. Seconds come and go. In the blink of an eye, so much time passes by. What was waited for so long had arrived and quickly gone. Time passes by so fast." And if you listen to a clock ticking, tick-tock, tick-tock, realize that too, it's chipping down on your life. One tick cost of a second of it. And that dash between your birth date and your consequent end, it becomes shorter and shorter and shorter. So what does this mean to you? How can you get the fullness of what life has to offer if life is short? And the truth is, however, that most often we feel we have so much time in the world, we become oblivious to what's around us. We just move on with the flow of life. You know, we tend to postpone, procrastinate, become unmindful of things, especially those crucial to our very existence, but so surprisingly, not obvious to our current distracted sense. In other words, we're unable to move forward. We become stuck. Can you identify? Is this you? Are you stuck? When I say stuck, it means you seem to be lodged, frozen, or just simply going around in circles. You want to take your life somewhere, but you just can't. Or you aspire to do something great, something good, but cannot take a step up towards it. But instead, it's the opposite that happens. You sink deeper into a quagmire of guilt, of insignificance, of worthlessness, desperation, and hopelessness. And the reality to a dream that you've been holding on for some time, that seems so far-fetched. And this somehow robs you of your purpose, meaning, and joy. Or there's a desire in you to do much more, to love more, to pray more, to give more, but you still end up doing otherwise most of the time. You know, that kind of stuck. Have you ever been stuck in your life?
I think at one point in our lives, we've all become stuck. I too, when I look back and reflect upon myself for some time, I felt stuck. Or more specifically, felt like I was going around in circles. You know, I had a good job, good work routine. It was your typical Monday to Friday, go to work, come home, have some dinner. And then I told myself, nothing's gonna change for me unless I'm willing to initiate that change and try something different.
I come from a background where believing in God is everything, and not believing is a big heresy. I had questions and doubts. It's looked down upon if you ask. So my wonderings were never satisfied. I was looking for a God that loves us unconditionally. You know, the kind of love that bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things.
In my late teenage years, I found myself partying with my friends, going to concerts, raves even, and you know, I found myself also hanging out with the wrong crowd. Some of these people used harder drugs. At the time, I had some reluctance, but eventually I found myself using these drugs too. All the while, I was still attending a university at the time, and I ended up dropping out because my GPA was too low. So eventually what ended up happening was I met some people that were involved in the drug trade, and they were selling drugs. So I ended up finding myself being involved in the same trade as well.
Whether that be something new given situation, something at work or at home, maybe in a relationship, I always say you miss 100% of the opportunities you don't take. But as soon as you put yourself out there and you try something new is bound to happen.
The truth is, our God desires us to grow, to move forward, and experience the fullness of life. It was never God's plan for you to get stuck. You know what He wants? He wants breakthroughs to happen in our lives. Do you know what a breakthrough is? Have you experienced a breakthrough in your life?
At first, I believed in God because I had to. I went through a phase later on where I did not believe. It just wasn't working for me. And then this feeling comes along when I walked out on a relationship that was toxic and unhealthy. I felt I was all alone, and Christmas was just around the corner. A feeling came over me that I wanted to go to church on Christmas Eve. I don't know if it was something that stuck with me or where that feeling came from. When I was a child, I went to a Christian school. We had a chapel there. We used to pass by the chapel to go to class every day. And you would see a nosy little Ryan tiptoeing to see what's going on inside through the chapel glass window. The chapel was always locked, until this one time when it wasn't. I went in for just a moment and got out right away. I still remember the beautiful silence that was echoing inside. I also remember the cross in my head till this very day. It was the first time I see Jesus on the cross.
Addiction is very powerful. No matter how much willpower I had, it was never enough for me to stop using altogether. I realized I was beyond human aid. And this was like after a number of years of doing this. I would tell my friends like, hey, I think I have a problem, maybe I should go to treatment. And then they would just slough it off and say, hey, you're not that bad. At least like, you know, you're doing all right. Like it could be worse. But I knew I had a problem. As well as being involved in the drug trade, I was caught up in the cycle of, you know, selling drugs and using drugs and funding other habits. Like it was just ridiculous. I had a really messed up lifestyle. So for what ultimately I realized after a number of years, if anything was gonna help me out of this situation, it was gonna be a God. And I didn't really have an understanding of God, but I believed and I had faith that there was one.
So that was my present mindset. And then now, my motivation. So what was my interest and goals? So I kind of did this self-reflection, if you will. Then I asked myself, what was I willing to give, to contribute, to learn and grow, to be my best self? I then started by stepping out of my comfort zone and trying to do something new every day. It all started with my new morning prayer routine, with the focus being on being genuine, kind, caring, and considerate towards others. And not stopping just there, but to keep moving forward by learning, leading, and sharing my experiences with others. Martin Luther King once said, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. The message here is to keep moving. And I say to you, seek out the Lord's promises in everything that you do. And before you know it, you'll be well on your way to as if you haven't had or are having your own breakthrough.
A breakthrough, by definition, is overcoming something or having a success or achievement or an act or instance of prevailing, progressing, advancing through an obstacle, a hindrance, an obstruction that blocks your path and makes movement or growth difficult. You know, many years ago, I once rode a 5-seater plane coming from a project I was involved in, and we were flying back to my home city. We encountered very thick clouds and a thunderstorm, and visibility was zero. Hardly you can see anything around. Our light plane was being tossed up and down amidst the gray clouds around it. And we were at that distance already where there was nowhere to go. We just had to rely solely on the control tower's instructions and guidance. It was actually a very scary experience. It seemed like eternity. And you know, the one thing I will always remember was that point of breaking through those ominous clouds and finally seeing the runaway. You know, that gave me a deep sense of relief and gratefulness for landing whole and landing safe. This has always been a great illustration of what a breakthrough is, at least for me. When you break past something and see what lies ahead. When you start looking at things from a different perspective and start seeing the whole picture. It can be a sense of discovery, an awakening, a coming out to a next phase on a new level. That's breaking through. And you know, I've advised, counseled, and seen people who by sheer willpower, they try to change and transform their lives or try to reach their aspirations, but never realized it. Why? Because breakthroughs, most of the time, cannot be done alone or by the will. It cannot solely be done by us. Look back in my story. The pilot of that light plane, as he was unable to see beyond the thick clouds, he followed the guidance of the control tower. And imagine, if he did it on his own, I probably will not be here speaking to you today. And in our journey of life and faith, we also need to be guided. Let me ask you, what is, or better yet, who is your control tower? You may have a roadmap or a compass pointing you to the right direction. You know, having it is one thing, but following it is another. We need to cooperate with our God. This is our part. God's part is to provide the power to break through. Maybe you've struggled much in keeping your faith to heart, but you still fail most of the time. Or you have tried your best to love someone, but that person is not changing for the better. Or you're new in your faith and are still grappling with your doubts. Or there's a hidden addiction in you that has gripped your life for a long, long time. I have great news for you. Nothing is too hard for our God, for He can make possible the impossible. Do you believe this? If you do, our breakthroughs can happen only because we can do all things through Christ who gives us strength. Friends, we would like to share with you powerful breakthrough stories that can rock your world, that can empower, enable, inspire, and bless your life.
Christmas was here. I wanted to go to church to attend Mass for the first time to see what all the fuss is about. I didn't want to go alone. What if they knew I was an imposter? I thought, no way I was going alone. I will call my Christian friend, and that way no one will find out. So I did. Johnny invited me to dinner with his family on Christmas Eve, and then we went to Mass at midnight. It was the most memorable experience. I went in full focus, and I asked a lot of questions during. What's the meaning of this and that? Everything. God is love, they said. That was interesting, I thought, more appealing. I wanted to do it again. Should I ask Johnny again? I thought, but Johnny isn't that religious. What if I was imposing? No, I won't ask again, I thought. Then guess who I met? My other half, my very first Christian boyfriend at the time, my fiancé now, Thierry. Thierry is a Catholic. Thierry goes to Mass every Sunday. Thierry goes to Medjugorje every summer. At the time, I didn't know what all that meant, honestly. It wasn't like I was looking for someone who goes to Mass every Sunday. Crazy how God works, right? So I went with Thierry to Mass every other Sunday. The Word of God was starting to enter my life. It was, at the time, still a discovery for me. It's not like I was hooked right away. And then, Thierry started telling me about all these stories from Medjugorje. I always had my doubts and questions, but something was appealing to me. God is love, they say. Okay, I'm still listening. I still want to know more. I'm keeping my distance to protect myself, but I'm saying I'm open to anything that will make sense. Thierry wanted to take me to Medjugorje. I said yes. I think that's where my breakthrough came in. God revealed himself to me. You can't just know something like that on your own. The God of love revealed himself. The peace I experienced there is not tranquility. It is the kind of peace that you won't find anywhere except through him, with him, and in him. It's the kind of peace that doesn't eliminate all the suffering, but instead takes it away, washes it, and gives life in return. God's peace, Jesus' peace. It was the Eucharist for me mainly. Jesus giving up his body and blood for us. It was the ultimate love, the ultimate sacrifice. I was so humbled by it. The meaning of life changed for me. Life wasn't about thinking of myself and my own happiness anymore. With Jesus, it's the total opposite. Life is all about giving it as a sacrifice to others, living to help and love and forgive others. This brought me an immense peace. I pursued Jesus. I went and listened to theologians speaking, read the Bible, went to catechism classes, and went through RCIA, and I finally got baptized.
What brought the transformation was most definitely God. And it was by far, and this was like a number of years ago, and I remember attending, it was a ministry called Ablaze, and it's a charismatic prayer group, and there was a layman, and he was laying his hands on people, and you know, I was there with some friends, and they convinced me to go up and have my to be one of the people that gets prayed over. You know, I was very reluctant at the time, and like I wasn't fully engaged, but you know what? I actually gave it a shot. So I had a moment where I just told him, like, this is what I've been doing, this is what I've been going through, this is like, and then just like in a matter of seconds, I was able to like almost vomit out the stuff that I've committed in the last like years, right? And then he was taken back by it, and what ended up happening was he prayed over me. I just remember this huge, like this warm white light just come over me, and it just surrounded me, like, and I was just in a state of bliss. And it was like such a mesmerizing experience that like I can't even like put words to it. Eventually, like what I thought was like 45 seconds later turned out to be 10 minutes later. My friends telling me, hey, get up, you've been laying on the floor for like 10 minutes. I'm like, what? And it was like the most profound and beautiful experience I've ever had. But ever since that moment, like I remember for a week and a half straight, like something really deep and profound happened in my life. And that's when my desire to like join RCIA, seek God, go to Bible studies, and I had to find out more about who this God is and more about the Catholic Church.
Of healing, of forgiveness, of hope, love, conversion, encouragement, inspiration, miracles, and blessings. You know, everything can change in the blink of an eye. But don't worry, because our God never blinks. So are you looking to overcome something in your life, in your faith, in your family, in your relationships? And are you ready to receive it? If you are, welcome to Breakthrough.